Number 10, lying about her father. In the first installment of the Tell-All series, Meghan says that she attempted to contact her father Thomas Markle multiple times in the lead up to her 2018 royal wedding, after it had emerged that he had staged paparazzi photos for money. During the documentary, messages between Thomas and Meghan were shown on screen, but Meghan claimed that his responses seemed fake and his phone had been compromised. She said, "It was really weird. You know how people text, right? My dad used a lot of emojis and a lot of ellipses and ... and this was just the opposite, and it called me Meghan." And I was like, "He's never called me Meghan any day that I've lived on this planet." And I was like, "That's not my dad." However, Thomas has now come out saying that it really was him who sent those texts. He said, "I wrote every word that I sent from that phone, which is still in my possession. For her to claim my phone was compromised is simply not true. I wrote that text as I lay in a hospital bed after having 2 heart attacks and having stents put in. I wasn't angry. I was in the hospital. They never once asked how I was doing. When I got their messages, I was upset. I thought I didn't deserve those messages." So if those texts were really from her father, why did Meghan make it seem like he had been hacked and someone had taken his phone? It just doesn't make any sense. Number 9, the privacy issue. There's been plenty of criticism in the wake of the Netflix series being released, and a lot of it comes down to the apparent hypocrisy surrounding Harry and Meghan's decision to leave the royal family in pursuit of a reclusive life away from it all. The series again pushes the idea of the excessive media intrusion into their lives, with multiple clips of the couple being pursued by crowds of paparazzi, and so people feel that the added publicity and attention they are getting from the documentary is completely at odds with their reason for leaving the UK and abandoning their royal duties. In fact, they've received so much backlash for this that they have now released a statement saying they never wanted privacy in the first place. It wasn't them exactly, but it was their global press secretary Ashley Hansen who released a statement on behalf of the couple saying, "Duke and Duchess have never cited privacy as the reason for stepping back. This distorted narrative was intended to trap the couple into silence." In fact, their statement announcing the decision to step back, she went on to say that they are choosing to share their story and blame the tabloid media for the negative press coverage of their documentary. But even this amount of backpedaling won't change the narrative that Harry and Meghan continue to put out there, which is that they want a simple life out of the royal spotlight. Number 8, criticizing William and Kate. One thing about the documentary that was glaringly obvious was that Harry and Meghan were using it as an opportunity to subtly diss William and Kate's marriage. In the first 3 episodes, when Harry explained his reasons for marrying Meghan, he compared her to his late mother Princess Diana and said that when it comes to choosing a partner, he was more like her than William because he made his decision from his heart rather than his head. Then, in what really sounded like a criticism of his brother, he said that in the royal family, the temptation is to marry someone who fits the mold, obviously referring to Kate Middleton. He also said that as products of divorce, both he and Meghan were determined not to make the same mistakes as their parents. For her part, Meghan recounted the first time that she met William and Kate and said that she was surprised by how formal they were, even behind closed doors. "I guess I'd start to understand very quickly that the formality on the outside carried through on the inside." In comparison, Meghan said that the first time she met the couple, she wore ripped jeans and was barefoot when they came over for dinner. She said, "I was a hugger. I've always been a hugger. I didn't realize that is really jarring to a lot of Brits," which seemed like an obvious attempt to make the pair out to be cold, even towards their own family. Number 7, changing their story. Something that doesn't sit right with fans is that Harry and Meghan seem to have changed their story on more than one occasion. 5 years ago, the Sussexes told the world that they met via a friend who set them up on a blind date. They revealed this in an interview with the BBC, which was organized for the announcement of their engagement. Harry said, "We first met, we were introduced actually by a mutual friend," before being interrupted by Meghan, who said, "We should protect her privacy." And then Harry says, "It was through her." But now the couple have told Netflix that the interview was completely rehearsed and more like an orchestrated reality TV show. What they're now saying is that they actually met on Instagram when Harry spotted Meghan in a mutual friend's feed. So that did a complete 180 on their story. It does sound more realistic now, but it's weird that they casually just admitted to lying about how they met. "Meghan and I met over Instagram. I was scrolling through my feed and someone who was a friend had a video of them. It was like a Snapchat. It was dog ears." Not only that, but they previously claimed that Harry proposed during a normal night where the two were roasting chicken, but they now have revealed that the proposal actually took place during an evening picnic in the garden. All things considered, it's a little strange that they managed to come up with 2 different stories and admitted that interviews they've given before were totally fake. Number 6. Disrespecting the Queen. While Netflix producers put a disclaimer in the beginning of the documentary explaining that all the interviews were filmed before the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, that wasn't enough to quell the backlash that came from one specific mention of Her Majesty in the second episode. In a video clip that had gone viral on social media, Meghan was seen laughing uncontrollably as she described how Harry introduced her to the Queen. She said, "It was like that, like I curtsied as though I was like, 'Pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty,' like, was that okay?" She pauses to curtsy dramatically, but she's sitting down so she almost falls off of the couch. But next to her, judging from his body language and facial expressions, it seems as though Harry did not like the idea of his wife mocking his family traditions and cultural beliefs. Meghan was obviously joking, but not everyone was happy with that delivery. The editor of Elle American, Ben Q, retweeted the clip and wrote, "Meghan Markle mocking the late Queen, but don't forget she still wants her title as the Duchess of Sussex." And in a separate post, journalist Benjamin Butterworth said, "This is just nasty and unbecoming. Meghan looks like a school bully." Social campaigner Anna McGovern wrote, "Harry said that having to explain to Meghan Markle that she would have to bow to his grandmother was weird. Exactly 2 months after the Queen died, they slandered the royal family and reaped the monetary rewards. This is a pathetic performance that we all see through." Number 5. Misleading footage. Netflix has already been criticized for using footage that is completely unrelated to the couple, all to try and paint a very specific picture of them struggling to escape media attention. They used footage of Katie Price during her court appearance, clips from a Harry Potter film premiere, and even a video of Donald Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen being chased by photographers. For a bit of damage control, representatives of the couple have come forward now to defend the use of stock images and videos throughout the series, calling it standard practice in documentary and trailer production. While obviously a Netflix series is going to be somewhat sensationalized, it seems as though producers have taken an extra step to make it seem like the couple are constantly being hounded by paparazzi. Number 4. No royal lessons. During the documentary, Meghan brought up the 2001 film The Princess Diaries while talking about learning royal protocol in the early stages of her relationship with Harry. And according to the Duchess, she did not get the same training that Mia received from her grandmother, the Queen of Genovia. Quote, "There's no class where some person goes, sit like this, cross your legs like this, use this fork, don't do this, curtsy then, wear this kind of hat. It doesn't happen. So I needed to learn a lot, including the national anthem. It was baptism by fire." But rather than consulting one of Harry's family members, Meghan insisted that she simply Googled the national anthem and practiced waving etiquette all on her own. Harry also pointed out that the press had a lot of invented protocols that she had to adjust to, in addition to the royal standards. She complained that she was left floundering with no instructions, struggled with what to wear, and was forced to learn a lot on her own. Harry said that the lack of support was just ridiculous. But royal sources have since come out claiming that this was a total lie, and that Meghan met with 2 royal experts, the late Queen's private secretary Lord Gates, and a well-connected person for wardrobe advice. But regardless of whether or not she had any help, clearly there would have been a lot of royal etiquette for her to learn. So to be fair, that couldn't have been easy no matter which way you look at it. Number 3. Using the Princess Diana interview. The docuseries controversially used footage from Diana's Panorama interview, which Prince William has criticized when a review found that the journalist Martin Bashir tricked Diana into agreeing to it, relying on documents that he forged to claim that the palace was following her. William said that the interview should never have aired again, but the documentary aired a clip and Harry said that his mother had spoken the truth in that interview. It's perhaps not a surprise given the Diana and Meghan comparisons that have been made by many from day one of the couple's relationship, but Harry revealed that he too sees a lot of his mother in his wife. He said, "So much of what Meghan is and how she is so similar to my mom. She has the same compassion, the same empathy, she has the same confidence, she has this warmth about her." Harry also spoke of the driving motivation to protect her from the same fate of his mother, who tragically died in a car crash in Paris after she was chased by paparazzi. Although this comparison seemed relatively inconsequential and even heartwarming, many found it to be one of the most disrespectful parts of the documentary. Piers Morgan tweeted, "By far the most sickening part of this show for me was the constant use of Harry's late mother, Princess Diana, to stoke sympathy for Meghan. Having known both women, I can say with absolute certainty they have nothing in common whatsoever." So clearly, that didn't sit well with everyone. Number 2, attacking royal reporters. Prince Harry has long criticized the system of the Royal Rota, whereby journalists given accreditation by the palace are the official royal correspondents for major British news outlets. But the documentary saw him make a profound accusation. He described the Royal Rota as essentially an extended public relations arm of the royal family, and suggested that the family had been involved in the leaking and planting of stories against the couple. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have accused the media of destroying them before they left the UK, and at one point, Harry said, "Being part of this family, it is my duty to uncover this exploitation and bribery that happens within our media." Then Meghan can be heard saying, "Unfortunately, in us standing up for something, they are destroying us." She claims that she was stalked by the press in Toronto when she was filming Suits and had salacious stories planted about her. Quote, "Truth be told, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how good I was, no matter what I did, they were still going to find a way to destroy me." Harry said, "All royal news goes through the filter of all newspapers within the Royal Rota, most of which, apart from the Telegraph, happen to be tabloids. It all comes down to control. It's like, this family is ours to exploit, their trauma is our story and our narrative to control." There's no doubt that Meghan and Harry have had to deal with invasive paparazzi and unflattering headlines throughout their relationship, but the suggestion that Buckingham Palace is somehow behind every single piece of tabloid fodder out there is quite ridiculous. And coming in at number 1, bias in the family. Most controversially, Harry claimed that the Windsors had what he called an unconscious bias, and they questioned why Meghan should be protected from racist headlines and stalking by paparazzi after news of their relationship broke in 2016. Apparently, the only advice they got from the palace about this was don't say anything. Harry said, "So it was almost like a rite of passage, and some of the members of the royal family were like, my wife had to go through that, so why should your girlfriend be treated any differently? Why should you get special treatment? Why should she be protected?" To which he said, "The difference here is the race element." At this point, images of newspaper headlines flashed on the screen, which included things like, "Harry's girl is almost straight out of Compton." Another one said that Meghan's ancestors were a tailor, a teacher, and a cleaner in racially divided Jim Crow South. The documentary also showed images of Princess Michael of Kent wearing a Blackamoor-style brooch to a Christmas lunch that Meghan went to in 2017. Then it cut to Harry saying, "In this family, sometimes you are a part of the problem rather than part of the solution." Now, he does not disclose which members of the family suggested that Meghan had no right over anyone else to receive special protection, but he maintains that racism was constantly at play in the press attention that she received early on in their courtship. Number 10, Don Lemon. The CNN This Morning anchor had a scathing review of the book and called out Prince Harry for going into detail about the alleged fight between him and his brother William. Lemon slammed that part of the memoir and said that it was gauche to make that allegation public. He said, "Everyone has a family. I have arguments with my family. Am I going to put that out there for the world to see? I just don't understand why on earth he would want to put that out there. I know he's selling a book, but to me it's just gauche. This is not done. What exactly is he achieving by airing family dirty laundry? That's my question." What he's referring to, of course, is the passage in Spare where Harry recalled the moment where tensions with William reached a fever pitch over his relationship with Meghan Markle. In the book, we find out that the confrontation between the brothers became heated to the point where they physically hurt each other. Harry said things escalated when they started exchanging insults at one another, and when William claimed that he was just trying to help, Harry said, "Are you serious? Help me? Sorry, is this what you call this?" Apparently that comment angered his brother, who then lunged at him. Number 9, Judge Judy. Well, here's someone you would not have expected to talk about the memoir, but at least she doesn't mince words. The former family court judge got brutally honest when she was asked about how she would react to a relative writing about family drama for the world to see. Judy went on Good Morning Britain and said, "I will tell you that I would be furious, and I would think that that child or that grandchild was a selfish, spoiled, ungrateful one. That's what I would feel. I think that anyone with a brain would see that it's disingenuous. It's biting the hand that fed you. It's unseemly." And she's not the only one who seems to have taken issue with the fact that Harry is turning on his family. In his 60 Minutes interview, Anderson Cooper pointed out that certain passages from Spare could be seen as hurtful towards members of his family, particularly when describing William's baldness and the constant scowl on his face. Cooper said, "That's pretty cutting," but Harry disagreed and said, "I don't see it as cutting at all. So really, it's these snarky little comments in the book attacking his brother's appearance that make it seem like he truly intended to hurt his family. Number 8. Candace Owens. The conservative commentator is no stranger to voicing her opinions on Prince Harry or Meghan Markle, and so she devoted an entire segment of her podcast to give her review of Spare, even though she admitted to viewers that she did not actually read the book. Instead, she paid someone else to read it, just so that she didn't have to. So obviously she must really detest the royals. Unsurprisingly, Candace's views of the book were pretty negative, with the key criticism being that just by writing it, Harry has removed a huge level of mystery surrounding the royal family that is so desirable to the public. She said, "We wanted to believe that the royal family was unobtainable, that they were better than us, that they were above us, and then something happened. Prince Harry opened his mouth." She went on to say that now the royal family seem more or less like the Kardashians, but she believed that there are elements of the book that not even Kim Kardashian would publicize. Candace called Harry despicable and accused him of hypocrisy, because in order to promote his book, he had to work with the very same media that he criticized so much. Number 7. Piers Morgan. As one of the most notable critics of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the UK talk show host had plenty to say about his new memoir. To sum it up, he believes that Harry has now officially blown it with the royal family and will never be able to undo the damage done by the book. He said, "I have no doubt this is highly entertaining in parts. It's riveting. It's incredibly intrusive. But I mean, you can't just believe what you're reading. This will be a #1 bestseller. Best luck to him, it'll make millions. But at what cost?" Piers went on to say that Harry has completely burned bridges with the entire royal family, and there's really no coming back from that. He said there's no amount of money in the world that would make him do this to his own family, and encouraged everyone to throw out the book. But everyone knows Piers Morgan has never been the biggest fan of the Sussexes. When their Netflix docuseries came out, he fired a series of tweets attacking Harry and Meghan. In one of them, he wrote, "King Charles needs to strip these two poisonous rats of all remaining titles and ties to the royal family, and needs to do it fast before they destroy the monarchy." He compared the series to Keeping Up with the Kardashians and labeled it as disgusting and boring. Number 6. Megyn Kelly. The former Fox News presenter criticized the fact that Harry mentioned the fight with his brother at Nottingham Cottage in 2019. She argued that he did not take accountability for any role that he may have had in the fight, and she believes that including that story was incredibly emasculating because it didn't line up with other moments in the book, like his claim that he killed 25 Taliban fighters while serving in Afghanistan. She said Harry just puts it all on William's anger and how he was this poor victim who doesn't fight back, doesn't shove his brother back, doesn't tell him to get the hell out and then talk to his wife. She went on to say that instead he called his therapist, he called his counselor. Then she said the whole thing feels incredibly emasculating for this guy who clearly wants us to see him as a tough guy. Megyn added that it's hard to imagine how the spat between Harry and his family members could get any worse, because the headlines he has now created about them are so ungracious. She's also called out Meghan Markle for the exact same thing and said that the Sussexes both want the public to feel sorry for them. Number 5. Bethany Frankel. The Real Housewives of New York City star blasted the Sussexes for their latest project. After the contents of Spare was leaked to the public, including Harry's account of experiencing frostbite on his genitals, she posted a review on TikTok saying, "Is it too late to change the name of Harry's book to Dirty Harry Laundry? I mean, if I had a nickel for every person who had thrown down with a family member, a brother." She mostly described the oversharing in the book and said, "How much more are we going to read about? Meghan getting a pap smear? I mean, what's next? Honestly, I feel like I'm going to be in a rectal exam with Harry and William. We get it, we got it. What else are we going to do? Like high colonics with the royals?" Back when the docuseries came out, Bethany said that the show was a major cash grab and something that Meghan and Harry decided to do because they were already causing chaos by leaving the family. She also believed that they really wanted to push the Princess Diana comparison, but that achieved the opposite result because Diana was there for 5 times longer than Meghan, and she entered the monarchy when she was only 19, so it would be impossible to make the comparison. Number 4. Sharon Osbourne. The former talk show host appeared on Britain's Talk TV to discuss the new memoir and said that it has turned the life of the royal family into a soap opera. She also described Harry as a man baby and said, "He's so childish yet he's an adult. The things he says are so childish he's got no understanding of the real world." Ironically, Sharon was actually fired from a talk show in 2021, all because of her outspoken views on Harry and Meghan. Following the release of their docuseries, she went on Piers Morgan Uncensored and said, "I was totally bored by the whining. It's just so horribly disrespectful and just a whine fest. I mean, is the book going to be the same thing?" She said that Meghan and Harry just need to move on and get a life. She even accused the couple of having a deal with Netflix lined up before they step down from royal duties, which would be very bizarre if it turned out to be true. Number 3. Meghan McCain. The former co-host of The View penned a lengthy Daily Mail op-ed about the memoir and claimed that Harry and Meghan are losing America because no one is buying what they're selling. Meghan wrote, "Ask yourself, why did Harry hold back these details about his brother until now? The answer is in part, obviously money." She also added in a scathing review of a passage where Harry claims to have killed 25 Taliban fighters during his time serving in the British Army. She wrote, "Which is it, Harry? Are you the military tough guy who brags about your body count in Afghanistan, or the frightened prince who cowers in front of your brother and rushes to call your therapist? I don't think you can be both." She called the prince insincere, cynical, and duplicitous, bringing up the fact that he and his wife have been on Oprah, sat down for countless media interviews, produced a 6-part Netflix series, but it's only now in his new book that he chooses to reveal his disdain for William. Meghan believed that he was holding on to that nugget for the right moment, and he dealt out his family's dirty laundry piece by piece for maximum effect. Number 2, Kirstie Allsopp. The Channel 4 presenter was quick to criticize the revelations in Spare. She tweeted, "So far, there has been no concessions from Prince Harry that any of this is his fault. He and his wife have seemingly done nothing wrong, and everything is everyone else's fault. That's not how life works." Kirstie was left entirely unimpressed with how Harry came across and questioned his true intentions behind releasing the book. Quoting his ITV interview, she said, "So they're in bed with the devil, but Harry's just chatting to Tom Bradby on primetime ITV for what?" Not long after that, she tweeted, "What work? Your book, this interview, it isn't about service or charity. This is about you." And let's be honest, Harry and Meghan have briefed and briefed and briefed. Back in December, Kirstie also took a dig at their motives for putting out the Netflix project in the first place. She said, "It's totally okay to leave the family firm, but don't try and crash the share price after you've left. Harry and Meghan wanted to have their cake and eat it too. That's not how it works. Want to be royal? Work for it. If you don't, you're welcome to be like the rest of us." And coming in at number 1, Lorraine Kelly. The TV host aired her frustrations about the book during her ITV program, where she was joined by a number of guests to discuss the Tom Bradby interview, including former veteran Philip Ingram. They discussed Harry's revelations about Afghanistan, and the retired colonel explained that Harry still has so much to offer when it comes to working closely with veterans. Kelly agreed and said, "Yeah, there's so much more that both of them could do together." That's the thing that I think is so frustrating, because you could see how well they work together as a team and the things that they could do. I've always said this, it would be so good if somehow they could have made that work. Her comments came right after Harry's ITV interview, where he talked about the death of his mother, Princess Diana, his relationship with his father, King Charles, and of course his brother William. Harry explained why he chose to go public only now, and said, 38 years of having my story told by so many different people. With intentional spin and distortion, it felt like a good time to tell my own story, and be able to tell it for myself. Well, for better or worse, he's certainly been given the space to share his opinions now."
Coming at number 10 today, we have Howard Stern. Howard Stern is not holding anything back when it comes to his opinion on the Sussexes, especially when it comes to Prince Harry. When the 68-year-old radio personality spoke out about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's new Netflix docuseries, Harry and Meghan, during an episode of his Sirius XM show, he would say, "It's been painful. I wouldn't stay with it, but my wife, Beth Stern, wants to watch it, so you know, we have shows we watch, but they come off like such whiny bees." Howard would then go on to say, "I gotta tell you, man, I just don't get it, and honestly, I think we're just as confused as Howard, as the whole film was just old stories they have said in every single interview, but no proof to back up their claims." While Howard did feel bad for Harry because he did lose his mother, Princess Diana, at such a young age, he definitely is not a big fan on how Meghan and Harry have gone about to tell their story on how things all went wrong and why they have chosen to walk away from their royal duties. Stern would also go on to say, "When those two start whining about wah, they don't like me, and she wants to be beloved in this country, but man, oh man, you know, it's just very weird to watch two people who keep screaming, we want our privacy, we wanted the press to leave us alone, and what is their special they put on Netflix showing you them and their kids and their life? It's like the Kardashians, except boring." Number 9, Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan has made his feelings very clear on Prince Harry's latest tell-all interviews, calling them delusional, paranoid, and pathetic. This would come after Harry spoke with ITV, Tom Bradby, and CNN's Anderson Cooper on Sunday night about the revelations in his new autobiography, Spare. The book, officially launched on Tuesday, would reveal a number of revelations, like the time William and Harry had a confrontation over Meghan, and William pushed Harry to the ground. When Harry sat down with ITV on Sunday after after the interview, Piers was definitely not impressed, and he would head to Twitter to say, "Never seen an unhappier happy man in my life." Prince Harry's bitter, delusional, paranoid, family trashing, half-wit exposing and exploiting the royals' most personal secrets for gazillion, while it's wanging on with jaw-dropping hypocrisy about media intrusion. He's pathetic. With Harry speaking to Bradby about his current relationship with the royal family in his upcoming book release, when he was asked whether he was looking back too much, Harry would say, "We always knew that these two projects, both the Netflix documentary and the book, one being our story and one very much being my story, they were look-back projects, and I'm sure once Piers finishes reading his book, he's only gonna have a lot more to say about Harry's story." Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming at number 8, we have Dan Wootton. Dan Wootton has had enough of Harry's deranged campaign against media devils in the royals, as he believed Harry is trying to destroy Charles, Camilla, and William over leaks and briefings. In a column posted to the Daily Mail, Dan would say that the fairy tale goes that this selfish couple were forced to smash relations with the British royal relatives and flee the country because of a vicious briefing campaign launched against them, even seeing the press conspire with the institution and senior members of the royal family to drive out such a popular pair, and that the narrative was actually really deranged. Dan would also go on to note that the story was invented and designed by sniveling Harry and fake Meghan to avoid taking any of their own behavior, including credible claims of bullying against staff by the American diva. At the end of the article, Dan would then note that enough is enough, and it's time for the woke media to stop giving the Duke of Sussex an easy ride and realize that the damage he is causing to democracy with his falsehoods, distortion, and deranged attacks designed to cause further damage to freedom of the press in Britain. Number 7, Candace Owens. Candace Owens has finally entered the chat, and it was kind of shocking to see what she had to say about the revelations in Prince Harry's new memoir, Spare. The controversial political commentator decided to weigh in on Harry's new memoir, in which the Duke of Sussex has made some major bombshell remarks about the tension between him and the British royal family. On Sunday, after Harry's interview with ITV, Candace would head to her Instagram account to say, "Meghan putting pregnancy tests next to locks of Prince Diana's hair, plus asking for private moments at Diana's gravesite to speak to her, are not things to laugh at." Instead of laughing, Candace would call Meghan's behavior terrifyingly psychopathic and manipulative actions. Candace would then go on to conclude that Meghan is dangerous before noting through a hashtag that the Duke of Sussex has gone mad. Candace was referring to Harry's claim in the book that he and his brother Prince William each have a lock of their mother's hair, which is cut from her head by her sister shortly after her passing. Number 6, Jason Williamson. Jason Williamson has gone the extra mile when it came to showing his dislike of Prince Harry when he wrote a scathing open letter that was published in Britain's most left-wing newspaper. When Jason decided to vent after learning that Harry was due to visit Nottingham, hometown, alongside of Meghan Markle for their first joint official engagement, the pair headed to the city to witness various charity initiatives in action. But it seems fair to say that Williamson wasn't feeling particularly charitable in his response. The outspoken frontman described Harry's engagement to Meghan in The Guardian as being heinously over-publicized and continued to bring up dark tendencies of Harry's ancestors, and referred to him and his family as both being psychopaths and monsters. He would then conclude, "We are apologists, never-ending apologists, who will gush at Harry's perceived interest in the youth program he is currently involved with in the St. Anne's area. He doesn't give a toss about those people. This only serves to strengthen his family's position as relevant and merciful." He would then proceed to say, "Go home, Rambo. Nottingham doesn't need you." Number 5, Christy Allsop. Location presenter Christy Allsop took to Twitter on Sunday to slam both Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Following Harry's latest interview with ITV, the Duke of Sussex defended his explosive new memoir, Spare, during a talk with presenter Tom Bradby at his California home. After watching the interview, Christy would be left feeling entirely unimpressed with how Prince Harry came across and questioned his true intentions behind releasing the book. And she would say, "So they're in bed with the devil, but Harry's just chatting to Tom Bradby on primetime ITV for what?" Soon after her first initial tweet, she would then tweet, "What work? Your book? this interview, it isn't about service or charity. This is about you. Sick. And let's be honest, Harry and Meghan have briefed again. Number 4, Sharon Osbourne. Talk TV host Sharon Osbourne and her panel discussed clips from the Duke of Sussex explosive television interviews, which were broadcasted on CBS and ITV on Sunday. During the debate, Sharon noted that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's young children will grow up with no family on either parent's side. The 70-year-old then branded the situation as being ugly and very sad. During Tuesday's installment of her Talk TV show, Sharon claimed that the younger generation still supports Harry and Meghan's decision to start a new life in California. However, she added, older generations have definitely had it up to here with all the whining, and it's definitely just younger kids that still support them. She would then also remind the panel how all families argue and tell views, as it's normal to row with loved ones. Which is the truth. I have 5 siblings, and I know times get tough, but I would never air out our rows for the whole world to see, because that just seems a little bit childish, especially when you're trying to claim you want your family back in your life. Sharon would then note that the children will now be forced to grow up with no family, and it's just a terrible thing for any child to go through. Number 3, Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin was not impressed by how Prince Harry and Meghan Markle met, and even compared the royal to the controversial actor Armie Hammer. Kathy went on to say, they met on freaking Instagram. Prince Harry was flipping through his Instagram, looking at hot brunettes like every other guy in LA. I'm disappointed. I thought it was going to be a great love story. Prince Harry is like Armie freaking Hammer. What if Prince Harry's the new House of Hammer? With Armie recently being accused of sending some woman some pretty disturbing DMs, Kathy would go on to tease that her favorite thing would be comparing Harry to the disgraced actor, and she was seemingly only referring to the way he met Meghan and not the disturbing allegations that were made about Armie. Kathy would also go on to note that Meghan and Harry both keep acting like they can do so much good for the world, which is great and inspirational, but when's the last time a royal did anything that helped the world? And I'm honestly stumped when it comes to answering that question, but if you can answer it, let us know in the comments below. Number 2, Bethany Frankel. Bethany Frankel, an outspoken critic of Prince Harry and Meghan, explained why she is so obsessed with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex by saying it was because of a greater meaning. Bethany would go on to explain that she feels Harry's bombshell memoir, Spare, in which he drags his royal family members, did more harm than good for him and his wife. Bethany would go on to say, to scorch the earth and burn the bridges and handle a situation in such reckless, outrageous manner doesn't achieve the results. The royal family is more popular than they were before you started the circus. Bethany would then go on to suggest that even if Harry was trying to highlight greater issues like racism and mental health struggles, he failed to make real change because the public is too focused on the drama of all of it. By saying the focus is on this whole massive charade versus the actual issues, versus anyone talking about actual racism in society as it pertains to this matter, or the mental health of it, of the sibling rivalry, or the relentlessness of the paparazzi, and in life and business. I've learned that you don't take every single opportunity to scorch and torch the joint. While Bethany would then go on to slam the prince, she would also offer some sound advice when she said, you might be able to get further by playing chess and not checkers. While I've worked with many different people in my career, there have been issues that I would like to change. Instead of scorching the earth because I was scorned, I handled them professionally, and this is so much more important because this is about someone's family. And coming in at number 1 today, we have Paul Burrell. Paul Burrell hit back at the criticism from Prince Harry by saying he doesn't recognize the young man he sees today. In Harry's controversial memoir Spare, the Duke of Sussex said Diana's former butler was milking her passing for money when he publicized his 2001 book, A Royal Duty, which contained a raft of private revelations. But appearing on Australian breakfast show Sunrise, Paul would say, I first met him in his mummy's tummy. I don't recognize the young man I see today. That's not the boy I knew. What I see now is an angry, petulant, privileged prince who is consistently blaming other people and not taking accountability for his own part. Speaking from his home in Florida, Paul would then then go on to note that the Duke has changed fundamentally and that his mother would be appalled. She would be angry at these personal, vindictive revelations, which don't just undermine Harry but his country, his family, and the institution, which his mother was very proud of, and his late grandmother's legacy. Paul then went on to blame Harry's wife Meghan for the Duke's vindictive behavior, claiming she was the one driving him behind the scenes.
Number 10. Why he went public. Anderson Cooper asked a question that had seemingly been on everyone's lips for quite some time. He brought up the fact that Harry and Meghan stepped back from their senior royal roles in January of 2020 and relocated to North America, then inked a deal with Netflix and gave a tell-all interview to Oprah Winfrey just months later. Much to everyone's confusion, since it seemed like they wanted to live a private life and give up their royal titles. Since the Megxit, the couple has continued to use the Royal Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles that they received from the Queen on their 2018 wedding day, and Cooper asked, why not renounce your titles as Duke and Duchess? In response, Harry said, and what difference would that make? Then Cooper said, one of the criticisms that you've received is that, okay fine, you want to move to California, you want to step back from the institutional role. Why be so public? Why reveal conversations you've had with your father or your brother? You say you've tried to do this privately. Harry said, and every single time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakages and planting of stories against me and my wife. You know, the family motto is never complain, never explain, but it's just a motto. It doesn't really hold. To this day, many have pointed out that Harry has neglected to specify exactly which stories were leaked and planted against them. So his allegation continues to be very vague without anything solid to back it up. Number 9. Push to the limit. The fact that Harry has been so outspoken about the private details of his relationship with William just goes to show you how far their rift has gone, to the point where it feels irreparable. In his latest media appearance, Harry spoke to Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes and explained why he felt compelled to speak publicly about life within the royal family. He spoke about the time when he and Meghan stepped down from their senior duties in March of 2020, and explained that he'd sent countless emails and letters and messages over the 6 years, but he was not able to speak with his family privately. He also talked about the dirty game that his family would play, and said they will feed or have a conversation with the correspondent, and that correspondent will literally be spoon-fed information and write the story. Harry went on to say, so when we're being told for the last 6 years we can't put a statement out to protect you, but you do it for the other members of the family, there comes a point when silence is betrayal. However, he did admit to wanting his father and brother back, even though he says they've shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile. So at this point, it would be a miracle if they ever speak to each other again. Number 8. His family was complicit. During his interview with 60 Minutes, Prince Harry said that he was incredibly naive about how the British press would treat his relationship with Meghan. He also noted the relationship itself had given him a new awareness, saying what Meghan had to go through was similar in some part to what Kate and what Camilla went through, although with very different circumstances. He then went on to say, but then you add in the race element, which was what the British press jumped on straight away. I went into this incredibly naive. I had no idea that the press was so bigoted. Hell, I was probably bigoted before the relationship with Meghan. Anderson Cooper then asked him if he thinks that he was bigoted before he saw Meghan, to which he said, I don't know, put it this way, I didn't see what I now see. He then turns his attention to the family and says, at that time I didn't fully understand how much or how complicit the family were in that pain and suffering that was happening to my wife. And the one group of people that could have helped or could have stopped this from happening were the very people that were encouraging it to happen. And I sit here now in front of you asking for a family, not an institution. I want a family, and I understand that might be hard for them to separate the two, but to me, everything that I've witnessed and experienced over the years, there has to be a separation. Number 7. They feared for their lives. Prince Harry came out with even more accusations against his family and claimed that they had gotten into bed with the devil by cooperating with the media, and said that he could not remain silent in the face of distortions of the truth. He also said that he felt very at peace with his life in California and had never been happier, despite fleeing his home country with Meghan and his son Archie. Harry said that Megxit was a necessity because at that time they were fearing for their lives after constant attacks from the British press. He cited a recent controversial article by Sun columnist Jeremy Clarkson, who wrote that he wanted to see Meghan be paraded through the streets naked and pelted with excrement. That article caused near universal condemnation, and Harry insisted that it was a perfect example of what he was talking about. He said, "What he said was horrific and is hurtful and cruel towards my wife, but it also encourages other people around the UK and around the world, men particularly, to go and think that's acceptable to treat women that way. To use my stepmother's words recently as well, there is a global pandemic of violence against women." So clearly he wanted to make that point that hateful articles and headlines have real life consequences, and that's why he felt that Meghan was actually being threatened. Number 6, wanting to reconcile. Although he insisted that he is now happy with his life away from his family, Harry claimed that he does in fact love his brother and father and wanted to reconcile with them. He said that he 100% believed that forgiveness could really happen, but he also said that now the ball is in their court, saying, "I would like to get my father back. I would like to have my brother back." Anderson Cooper then asked him how he could expect to reconcile with them since he's taken a flamethrower to family bridges, to which Harry said, "Well, they've shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile up until this point, and I'm not sure how honesty is burning bridges." According to Harry, that silence would only allow negative patterns to continue. He said, "So I don't know how staying silent is ever gonna make things better. That's genuinely what I believe." Later in the clip, Cooper asked him if he could see a day where he would return to being a full-time member of the royal family, to which he simply said no. He then said, "But it never needed to be this way. I want a family, not an institution." In Harry and Meghan's Netflix documentary, he also confessed that he misses the family gatherings at certain times of the year, and he also misses seeing his friends. He explained that he's lost certain friends now, which just speaks to how much he really sacrificed in the process of breaking away from the royal family. Number 5, they were villainized. At another point in the interview, Harry referred to the way that he and Meghan were treated by the royal family. Instead of righting the wrongs that were happening and coming out in defense of the couple, Harry said that his family felt as though it was better to keep the narrative going that they were villains. He claims that the British press was also an antagonist in their relationship that he had with the rest of the family, as the tabloids wanted to create as much conflict as possible. And according to him, that's part of the reason why William turned against Meghan, because he consistently read the negative stories about her. He said, "The saddest part of that is certain members of my family and the people that work for them are complicit in that conflict. So much of the relationship between me and William and the way it played out was because of the narrative, or the distorted narrative that was being pushed through the British press, and some people within his office that were feeding him utter nonsense." Harry also went on Good Morning America and said that the press pitched William and Kate against Meghan. He said that there's always been competition between him and his brother, but it was exacerbated by media attention. He went on to say, "They always pitched us against each other. They pitched Kate and Meghan against each other, and when he was asked if he thought this made the two women go against each other, he said yes without question." Number 4, he believed Diana faked her death. Another shocking revelation from his 60 Minutes interview came when Prince Harry said that he and his older brother believed for many years that their mother, the late Princess Diana, may have faked her death and would one day return to their lives. Diana was in a car crash in Paris in August of 1997 when Harry was 12 and William was 15. Over the years, she was a topic of fascination and scrutiny for the British tabloids and also the media outlets around the world. Sadly, she was being hounded by paparazzi in the moments before her death. Quoting an extract from his memoir, Spare, Anderson Cooper said, "You write in the book, you say, I'd often say to myself first thing in the morning, maybe this is the day. Maybe this is the day that she's going to reappear." To which Harry said, "I just refused to accept that she was gone. I had huge amounts of hope." He said that he once thought maybe this is all part of a plan and his mother would eventually reappear into his life. Interestingly enough, he said that he held on to the belief that Diana was still alive until he was an adult. At 23, he visited Paris for the first time and asked a taxi driver to take him through the same tunnel where his mother was killed. Apparently, he even asked the driver to drive at the same speed that she was traveling at before her death, because he felt that he needed to take this journey and ride the same route. If anything, that was one of the saddest moments in the interview. Number 3, he never liked Camilla. In a shocking part of the interview, Prince Harry accused Camilla, the Queen Consort, of leaking stories about the family to the British media, all as a part of her campaign to rehabilitate her image. He also claimed that both he and his brother Prince William had asked the king not to marry her. He said, "We didn't think it was necessary. We thought that it was gonna cause more harm than good, and that if he was now with this person, that surely that would be enough." But then both of them eventually came around to the idea because they wanted their father to be happy, and they saw how happy he was with her. Camilla did go on to marry Charles in 2005, 8 years after the death of Diana, but it's common knowledge that the two of them had been involved romantically on and off for decades, and Diana had once famously referred to Camilla as the third person in their marriage. Because of that, her reputation was in tatters. Harry said this is why Camilla was so dangerous, because she needed to rehabilitate her image, seeing as she's been cast as the villain by the press for her part in the collapse of his parents' marriage. He said that made her dangerous because of the connections that she was forging within the British press, and there was open willingness on both sides to trade information. And with a family built on hierarchy, and with her on the way being to Queen Consort, there was gonna be people or bodies left in the street because of that. Number 2, he feels trapped. During his interview on Good Morning America, Harry spoke about his frustration with the fact that he can't ever get out of the royal family. He said that in the end, the palace had allowed them no compromise over their half-in, half-out hybrid plan to move to Canada while also still serving the crown. Apparently, this is what led to the Megxit crisis in 2020. He said, "This was really sad because I still to this day believe that this was entirely possible." The interviewer then said, "There are going to be people who say, why don't they either be in or get out? Because if you get out, there's no hypocrisy." To which Harry responded by saying, "I can't ever get out, and I'm incredibly aware of my position. I'm incredibly grateful for the life that I've had and continue to live. But there's no version of me ever able to get out of this. I was stunned that my family would allow security to be taken away, especially at the most vulnerable point for us." When he was asked about critics who say that he sold out his family, he says that the only way he could protect his family was to correct mistruths and write about the truth in one place, even though he did admit that writing the book in the first place was feeding the beast anyway. To be fair, he did say that he takes some kind of responsibility for his role in the breakdown of his relationship with his brother, but he then said, "What people don't know is the efforts that I've gone to resolve this rift privately." And coming in at number 1, William and Kate never liked Meghan. Over the weekend, Harry also spoke to ITV's Tom Bradby and addressed the tension in the family when he started seeing his now wife. When he told William and Kate about his relationship with Meghan, he said, "There was a lot of stereotyping that was happening, that I was guilty of as well, at the beginning, around her being an American actress. Unfortunately, that stereotype was causing a bit of a barrier to them to introduce or welcome her in." Bradby then asked, "The impression is that from the get-go they didn't get on. Fair?" To which Harry agreed and then claimed that that was for a lot of different reasons, saying that "I had to put a lot of hope into the idea that, you know, it would be William and Kate and me and whoever. I thought the 4 of us would bring me and William closer together. We could go out and do work together, which I did a lot of as a third wheel to them, which was fun at times, but also I guess slightly awkward at times as well." He wanted to say that he didn't think they were ever expecting him to get into a relationship with someone like Meghan, who had a very successful career. According to Harry, this was the root of them not understanding each other, and at one point William even said that it would be difficult to marry her for this reason. Number 10, Kate and Meghan never got along. In the book, Harry describes a confrontation between his sister-in-law and his wife, after she said that Kate must have baby brain because of her hormones when she forgot something. This all happened during a discussion ahead of Harry and Meghan's 2018 wedding. Kate had just given birth to her third child, Prince Louis, 1 month before the wedding, and she made it apparent that she didn't appreciate Meghan's comments. Apparently it caused such a huge row because Meghan was told that she wasn't close enough to her sister-in-law to discuss her hormones, and it wasn't the way people spoke to each other within the royal family. For her part, Meghan became offended by the reprimand and didn't seem to think that she said anything wrong. Harry also spoke to ITV's Tom Bradby over the weekend and recalled the moment when he first told William and Kate about his relationship. He said, "There was a lot of stereotyping that was happening, and I was guilty of that as well, at the beginning, and around her being an American actress. Some of the ways that my brother and sister-in-law were acting felt to me as though, unfortunately, that stereotyping was causing a bit of a barrier to them to introduce or welcome her into the family." Bradby then asked, "The impression is that from the get-go they didn't get on. Fair?" To which Harry simply agreed. Number 9, William warned him about Meghan. In another part of the book, Harry reveals that his older brother cautioned him about moving too quickly with Meghan, which only precipitated further fractures in their relationship. He apparently told Harry that he needed to slow down in his relationship because after all, she was an American actress. Ignoring the advice, Harry and Meghan got engaged just after 1 year of dating. Apparently this is when the tension between William, Kate, Harry and Meghan only escalated. Kate allegedly took offense to Meghan's request to borrow her lip gloss before a joint public appearance, and for her part, Meghan was reduced to tears on the floor after Kate objected to the size of Princess Charlotte's bridesmaid's dress and requested that it was remade 4 days before the wedding. During his interview, Harry said, "I had to put a lot of hope into into the idea that, you know, it would be William and Kate and me and whoever. I thought the four of us would bring me and William closer together. We could go out and do work together, which I did a lot as a third wheel to them, which was fun at times, but also, I guess, slightly awkward. Harry said that he didn't think they were ever expecting him to get into a relationship with someone like Meghan because of her career, and clearly that conflict never fully went away. Number 8, he always hated Camilla. According to a leaked excerpt of the book, Harry recalled that he and his brother were initially resistant to the idea of their father marrying Camilla Parker Bowles, following their parents' divorce and the death of their mother Diana in 1997. Harry explained that his initial fears were that Camilla might be cruel to him, like all the wicked stepmothers in the stories. And even though his feelings changed after meeting privately with her, he and William still didn't like the idea of their father walking down the aisle with the other woman. Harry literally refers to Camilla as the other woman in his book, and he said that both he and William told Charles that they would forgive her and welcome her into the family if he promised never to marry her. Quote, "You do not need to remarry, we begged him. A wedding would make the whole country, the whole world, compare our mother and Camilla, something that nobody wanted," although we know that Charles would end up ignoring his son's pleas, and the couple would eventually tie the knot in 2005, a full 8 years after the death of Diana. In a shocking passage elsewhere in the book, Harry compares meeting her for the first time to getting an injection. He said, "Close your eyes and you won't even feel it." He also hated the fact that his stepmother made his childhood bedroom into a dressing room after he moved out of Clarence's house. So obviously both brothers detested the fact that Camilla would even attempt to replace their mother. Number 7, he took 25 lives in Afghanistan. One part of Harry's memoir that has drawn global condemnation was his assertion that he killed 25 people while serving in the army in Afghanistan. Specifically, he claims that he's taken the lives of more than 24 Taliban militants while serving as an Apache helicopter co-pilot from 2012 to 2013. He wrote that he felt neither satisfaction nor shame for his actions, and in the heat of battle he thought of the enemy soldiers as pieces being removed from a chessboard, quote, "baddies being eliminated before they could kill goodies." So it's no surprise why this passage was extremely controversial, so much so that it not only drew outrage from the Taliban, but also from British veterans. Colonel Tim Collins, who led a British battalion during the Iraq War, told Forces News that Harry's statement was distasteful and said, "That's not how you behave in the army. It's not how we think." Of course, Harry is a veteran himself, having done 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan during his 10 years in the army. He's previously talked about his combat experience, saying near the end of his tour in 2013, "If there's people trying to do bad stuff to our guys, then we'll have to take them out of the game." He also said that most soldiers don't know exactly how many people they've killed because under battle conditions, you would often fire indiscriminately. But he also claimed that everything he did during his time in Afghanistan was recorded and time-stamped, so he could always tell exactly how many enemy combatants he had killed. Number 6, the best man lie. In his memoir, Harry claims that he was not the real best man at the wedding of his brother, and said that the pretense was carried out on behalf of 2 of William's closest friends, in order for them to avoid a high level of scrutiny over their private lives. He described his apparent role as the best man as a barefaced lie, and said that it was actually William's friends who gave the traditional speech at the reception, because his brother didn't want him to give the speech. Most shockingly, he also claimed that William was wasted on rum hours before his wedding, and that he was drunk when he went out to greet people before the ceremony. Harry said he could smell the aftermath of last night's rum on his brother's breath, and that he offered mints to him and said, "You smell of alcohol." Writing about his own wedding 7 years later, Harry then claimed that William tried to forbid him from keeping his beard, despite the Queen granting him permission to keep it. Apparently, William ordered him to shave his beard because he could not stand the thought of his younger brother having a perk that he was denied. Harry said, "At one point he actually ordered me, as the heir speaking to the spare, to shave, and he explained to his grandmother that his beard felt like a shield to his anxiety, and that was the reason for the different standard." Number 5, fight with his brother. Harry recounted what he said was a physical attack by his brother, fueled by tension of his marriage to Meghan Markle in 2019. He claimed that William called his wife difficult, rude, and abrasive when he arrived at Nottingham Cottage. He was apparently very worked up and launched into a rant about Meghan, while Harry tried to defend her and told him that he was just repeating the press narrative and that he expected better from him. He wrote that by this point he could see that William was not being rational at all, and the 2 men started shouting over one another. The confrontation escalated when they started exchanging insults, and William claimed that he was just trying to help, to which Harry said, "Are you serious? Help me? Sorry, is that what you call this? Helping me?" It was then that his brother lunged at him. Harry wrote, "It all happened so fast, so very fast. He grabbed me by the collar, ripping my necklace, and he knocked me to the floor. I landed on the dog's bowl. wall, which cracked under my back and the pieces were cutting into me. I lay there for a moment dazed, then I got to my feet and I told him to get out. William then urged him to hit back, but when Harry refused to do so, he said to have apologized and told him not to tell Meghan about what happened. Harry said this resulted in a visible injury to his back. So it seems like there was a lot of pent-up rage that came out during the fight. Number 4, he didn't believe Diana was gone. In another excerpt from his memoir, Harry recounts the emotional moment that he drove through the same Paris tunnel where his mother died in 1997, and he purposefully asked the driver to drive at the same speed that she was going when her car crashed. He wrote, "It had been a very bad idea. I'd had plenty of bad ideas in my 23 years, but this one was uniquely ill-conceived. I told myself that I wanted closure, but I didn't really. Deep down, I'd hoped to feel in that tunnel what I'd felt when JLP gave me the police files. Disbelief. Doubt. Instead, that was a night all doubt fell away. I got the closure that I was pretending to seek, I got it in spades, and now I'd never be able to get rid of it." During his interview on 60 Minutes, Harry claimed that he and his brother believed for many years that their mother may have faked her death and would one day return to their lives. Quoting an extract from his memoir, Anderson Cooper said, "You write in the book, you say, I'd often say to myself first thing in the morning, maybe this is the day. Maybe this is the day that she's going to reappear." To which Harry said, "I just refused to accept that she was gone. I had huge amounts of hope." He said that he once thought that maybe this is all part of a plan, and his mother would eventually reappear. This was a belief that he held on to until he was an adult. Number 3, William is his arch nemesis. In one part of the book, Harry describes the moment he returned to the UK for their grandfather Prince Philip's funeral. He wrote, "When I looked at Willie, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time since we were little, taking in every detail, his familiar scowl, which had always been the norm in his dealings with me." He also mentioned his brother's baldness, saying that it was alarming and more advanced than mine. He also thought William's resemblance to their mother Diana had faded, so for whatever reason, he felt the need to include some personal attacks on William's appearance. If anything, this part of the book has been heavily criticized as unnecessary and really petty. During his Good Morning America interview, the host Michael Strand inquired about his choice of wording, seeing as he calls William both his beloved brother and his arch nemesis, to which Harry says, "There has always been this competition between us, weirdly. I think that it plays into, or was played by, the heir/spare," referring to William's role as the future king, while Harry moved down the line of succession as he and Kate had children. In his new Netflix documentary, he actually claims that this wedge that was created between the two brothers was all because William took the institution side, and that's what caused the deterioration of their relationship. Number 2, racism in the family. In a 60 Minutes interview, Anderson Cooper asked Harry about claims that he made in his memoir that certain members of the family were uneasy towards Meghan when she was first introduced. He asked, what was that mistrust based on? And Harry said, the fact that she was American, an actress, divorced, black, biracial, with a black mother. He said those were just 4 of the typical stereotypes that becomes a feeding frenzy for the British press. He went on to say that the family actually does read the tabloids, so whether they walk around saying they believe it or not, the headlines are still leaving an imprint in their mind. So if they have that judgment based on a stereotype right at the beginning, it's very, very hard not to get over that. In his memoir, Harry also reflects on the controversial costume that he wore in 2005 and revealed that it was actually William and Kate who encouraged him to wear it. Apparently, the couple howled with laughter when they saw him in the outfit ahead of the Halloween party. Of course, pictures from the party were leaked to the press, who plastered it all over their front pages. The incident was so scandalous, it rocked the headlines of every tabloid for weeks. With its racist undertones, it was a risky enough outfit for anyone to wear, let alone a British royal. For a lot of people, finding out that William and Kate encouraged the controversial costume is a massive bombshell, considering all the accusations of racism against the family in recent years. And coming in at number 1, Living in William's Shadow. Harry's novel really delves into his feelings about being regarded as the spare son, the fact that he was never considered on the same level of importance as William when it came to their roles in the royal family. It's something that caused a lot of tension between them over the years. The book's title comes from an old saying in royal and aristocratic circles that the first son is an heir to titles, power, and fortune, and the second is therefore a spare if anything should happen to the firstborn. This is a conflict at the heart of the book. Because of the line of succession to the British throne, William has spent his whole life as an heir, while Harry has always been referred to as the spare, and this has clearly had a major effect on him over the years, which is part of the reason why he came to deeply resent his older brother. We can see this through the various chapters on his childhood, his schooling, his career as a royal and in the British Army, as well as his relationship with his parents and brother. Early on in the book, Harry recounts the story of how his father, King Charles, supposedly said to his mother on the day of his birth, "Wonderful, now you've given me an heir and a spare, my work is done." Overall, there's no telling how this kind of thinking would have shaped Harry's life, as he was born into a very unique set of circumstances.